Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Hofedades and Dero, welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry. On October 24th, Arlene Santos-Steffi, an ethnographer and oral history practitioner, presented her television series ITinaotao Marianas to the public here in the Marianas at American Memorial Park Visitors Center. This documentary series looks into the peopling of the Marianas from 1521 through 1898. It includes topics such as immigration, clan structure, the galleon trade, education, and the role of teachers in history. Following the presentation, Steffi also presented a 2-day oral history workshop at Cagman High School. Both events were free and open to the public, courtesy of the Northern Marianas Humanities Council. Here now are a few excerpts from Season 1 and 2 of ITinaotao Marianas.
As part of San Vittorio's mission, the galleon captain, Admiral Nito, took Kapuha into a private meeting, and there's an actual report of this, sat him down and told him that the Spanish would bestow munificent rewards on him and his people if he cared for and took care of the Jesuit mission. And in the next breath, he told him that if they are harmed, we will come back here and destroy you. So that has to be factored into Kapuha's calculations.
Maybe it was the voice of a clan decision that was taken in a consensuate way. Or maybe it was the voice of his wife that told, give them the land. We don't know.
And I believe that he found himself between a rock and a very hard place. On the one hand, he was presented with the opportunity of welcoming these Spaniards ashore. If he didn't, some other island or chief may have. If he did, he probably could see that there was going to be a lot of problems.
If we're talking Hagåtña and we're talking Kipuha, right? We don't know what was going on in Hagåtña at the time, or between Hagåtña and surrounding villages. We don't know this.
So he had the Spanish officers on the one hand leaning on him, saying they would punish him and his people if he didn't take care of the Spanish. On the other hand, he had to somehow blend them into society in a way that, made them allies, if you will, or supporters of the Hagåtña chiefs without antagonizing others. So he was in a very, very difficult place. And at his age, it must have been a very difficult 6 or 7 months for him after the mission came ashore.
Communication in this island are not easy. So there was a tradition, even in America, Latin America, we are not talking about highways and a priest can take a car and visit somebody that is dying or go and make catechesis. So since the Patronato Real, that is the obligation of the crown to evangelize, was primary, first. So what the Spaniards realized and the priests is that the easy way to do it is to concentrate population in villages.
Saipan, in the 1730s, there was an epidemic, and eventually most of the people died, and the few remaining survivors were transported to, I don't know if it's Guam or Rota.
But the Tinian people were taken, directly after the battle at Aguiguan. They didn't really have much of a chance. There were a few people that were left on Saipan, but I think then they were transported when there was enough canoes to do so.
So of course they do not expect that they will spread the viruses faster, as they don't have an ethnographical vision of the island. Right?
So they were reduced at that point, and then they were further reduced when they were brought to Guam. Those numbers are probably recorded. I would think maybe 300 to 400 people.
They die once they arrive, or in the process, no? But mostly when they arrive. Once this island has been reduced, we know that we control the population, there's no more rebels. All those who are rebels could be punished if they are found.
The last revolt was when they burned the church in Ritidian in the north. They were sleeping, and the priests say that a group of the Juritaos, came and burned the church and burned the house where the girls were sleeping, and they fled in their canoes to the northern islands.
And the Spanish, of course, responded in kind and burned the men's house. They were obviously resisting change at a level that was uncomfortable to them. They obviously allowed a priest to build this church. I'm sure the community is the one that built the church, not the priest. So the community was in some way accepting some of these different views, outside views, but something came to a head, which led to violence.
I was fishing around, for some other things that I missed. And one thing that I missed was the Uratao's house. A lot is made of that in the literature. Oh, San Vittorio says you can't have Uratao's house. You're going to have to chase out the girls. All right. San Vittorio saw that, as other missionaries did in other parts of Micronesia. San Vittorio saw that as a moral evil. But whether there were Uratao's houses or not, people were still doing night crawling in some form or other.
I think what preceded the burning of the church at Letekjan was an attempt by the priest to halt the traditional practice in the Gumaulitao, the men's house, of what scholars today call institutionalized prostitution in Chamorro. That's maulitao, when a woman is placed in the men's house. And this particular traditional practice was really frowned upon by the priests, and it was a real sore point for them. And I think the villagers at that time just didn't appreciate the priest imposing himself on them in the way that he did.
And actually, the Uratao's house was no big thing. I mean, remember, they had the same sort of thing, men's houses or clubhouses in Palau and in Yap. And they were gotten rid of in Yap and in Palau very easily without any serious repercussions.
Men's house is a very important institution in a village. That is the residence not only of the unmarried males, but that's the meeting place of all of the men of that particular village. There's a lot of power that's in the men's house, and I think it came down to who was in control of that village in the end.
The literature in the Marianas tells us that by the 1670s, 30 had been destroyed. Not closed, but destroyed. And the literature goes on to say that another 30 were closed in a single year. That wasn't a year that was punctuated by warlike hostilities. That was a normal year. So let's not exaggerate the importance of the Uratao's house. There's more than one way to skin a cat, as most Chamorros at that time would have testified to.
The Spanish Empire built itself on saving all these souls. If you think about what we say about what you say about God, do you think he appreciates that? Do you think he wants that done in his name? The fact that he received like thousands of new believers, quote unquote believers, quote unquote faithful converts now, who were forced into it through coercion, through intimidation. And so I say, this is the truth of the history, is that it doesn't matter like if only this many people died or this many people died. The whole thing is immoral. The whole thing is immoral. Because in order for you to say it's moral, you have to argue that some people have a right to go into other people's houses and take whatever they want. Some people, because they're better, because they believe different things, because they have better stuff, because they have different skin color, they have the right to go somewhere else and do whatever they want. And so, and hopefully most people believe that that's not right. That's not true. That's immoral. And if you do believe that's immoral, then you have to say that it was all wrong. That even if their children became Catholics because of it, it's fruit of the poison tree. It's still based on a terrible set of sins. Like, it's not real.
Ultimately, I think the Chamorros are a kind of a survivor race. That it's part of our thousands of years of development, you know, and I think that people should take pride in that. Not shame that we've changed, but pride that actually every change we made along the way has been part of our survival and part of our improvement. Every generation made decisions to say, okay, now how are we going to make this better? Okay, so let's change this, let's change that, now it's going to be better and stronger. Every generation has had different kinds of challenges, but in the end, I mean, where we're going is basically just to try to make things better for Guam. And I think people have been doing this for thousands of years.
And better for themselves.
Yes, and their children, their families, right, to have the best possible today, right?
We've been listening to excerpts from the DVD series ITinaotao Marianas, presented by ethnographer and oral history practitioner Arlene Steffi at American Memorial Park Visitors Center on October 24th. This documentary series interviews a number of scholars on the peopling of the Marianas from 1521 through 1898. Seasons 1 and 2 of the series are now available for purchase. This has been Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.